I and me, the science of understanding yourself. The distinction between I and me sits at the heart of debates about consciousness, personal identity, and subjective experience. Scientific progress has renewed global interest in how individuals experience themselves as both subjects and objects. If you're seeking to understand your own mind or pursue practical self-development, you've got to get a grasp on the difference between these two parts of yourself. Today we will discuss what contemporary research and philosophy reveal about I and me, what each concept means for conscious experience, and how these distinctions offer actionable insights for your personal and collective life. Hey everyone, I'm Henry, and you're watching Day 67 on my channel, Henry's Millions, where I dive deep into psychology, philosophy, and neuroscience, helping you explore and master the forces that shape your life. Our talk today is inspired by Mateusz Wozniak, 2018 article, I and Me, the Self in the Context of Consciousness. It's published in the Frontiers in Psychology. You know, philosophy tends to ask the hard questions like whether the self really exists, while I'm busy thinking why I is so bad at remembering where I left my wallet. So let's begin with discussing the historical roots of I and me. The fundamental difference between me and I can be traced to the groundbreaking work of William James in 1890. By the way, I have some wonderful videos based on William James' work, Principles of Psychology. This is months ago. If you're interested, you can go back and find them, about willpower. So this set the stage for ongoing research into the nature of selfhood. William James' analysis identified me as the self, understood as an object of experience, the empirical self whose qualities, roles, and thoughts can be observed and described. In contrast, the I refers to the self as the subject of experience, the perceiver or knower that stands behind all conscious content but cannot itself be observed as one more object. So scholars have since explored and expanded this distinction, recognizing its influence across psychology, philosophy, and neuroscience. For example, Ludwig Wittgenstein highlighted two uses of the word I. As object, my arm is broken, and as subject, I think it will rain, showing how language reflects deeper conceptual differences. And later, philosophers and cognitive scientists, such as Thomas Metzinger and Dan Zahavi, they further analyzed these facets, introducing distinctions like the phenomenal self, the me encompassing self-related thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations, and the metaphysical self, the I responsible for the subjective character of all experience. So this conceptual split has real-world implications. Research on the phenomena such as body ownership, thought ownership, most people don't own their homes or their cars. We're talking about thought ownership. And self-recognition reveals that people often distinguish, either implicitly or explicitly, between experiences that belong to the me, self-concept, body image, personal narrative, and the presence of a subjective point of view that is never an object among objects. So throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, the I-me distinction has become a crucial tool for clarifying questions about selfhood in scientific context. This framework aids not only philosophical clarity, but also enables new forms of personal reflection. I'd like to share with you a useful exercise to try later if you can't pause the video now. So to recall a recent moment, a heated debate with a partner, some have more than others, a work presentation, a quiet walk, then noting personally which thoughts, actions, or memories feel like expressions of me and which carry the more elusive I, the author or observer behind every experience. So this exercise reveals how universal and consequential this self-split is for personal insight, for empathy, and for meaningful communication. So let's talk about the phenomenal me. Within cognitive science and neuroscience, the me is typically defined as the totality of self-related conscious content. This encompasses everything you experience as your own: physical sensations, proprioception, interoceptive states like hunger or pain, emotions, memories, values, goals, and reflexive thoughts about identity or social status. Interoception is the sense of what's happening inside your body, as opposed to an external sense like hearing or sound. You get the idea. So William James' original tripartite model of the self, material, social, and spiritual aspects, has evolved in light of neuroscientific research, which now closely examines how the brain constructs and maintains representations of the self. And recent neuroscience offers vivid findings. For instance, MRI studies show that when people view photos of their own face, distinct networks in the medial prefrontal cortex light up more strongly than when these same individuals view images of friends or celebrities. Sorry, I can't give you a visual here. I just can only point in the, in the direction of the brain. So in one experiment, by the way, did you catch this? This is really interesting. I don't know if you've looked at images of yourself, a photo of yourself. I think it's a great thing to try. Pull up a photo of yourself where you're looking at you, right? Where the photo, you're looking at the camera. Pull up that photo of yourself and just stare at it for a few minutes. It's really a remarkable experience. So the MRI studies, they lit up when you are viewing photos of your own face. And the distinct networks in your brain light up on these MRI scans. So in one experiment also, even toddlers demonstrate this bias. By age 2, children recognize recordings of their own voice and react sooner, underscoring the developmental roots of the phenomenal me. So contemporary studies using brain imaging, virtual reality, and psychophysical techniques have extensively explored the boundaries and dynamics of self-relatedness. For example, experiments manipulating body ownership through illusions, such as the rubber hand paradigm, reveal how multisensory integration and predictive coding produce the experience of bodily mindness. This study or illustration of rubber hand paradigm is when they were moving a rubber hand, and I don't know what the subject was told to do, but they felt or thought that it was their own. So work on the extended self shows that objects associated with the self, like one's own face or possessions, are processed differently, often more rapidly and accurately, by the brain than objects not linked to the self. These effects can be modulated through cognitive training, context changes, or even temporary alterations in sensory feedback. So researchers have found that the line separating self and the other can be surprisingly fluid. For instance, certain clinical conditions, such as organ transplantation or dissociative disorders, they provide vivid examples in which the sense of me can weaken or extend or fragment. So by treating self-relatedness as a matter of degree rather than an all or nothing category, scientists have mapped gradients of ownership and inclusion. There's some neuroscientific accounts, such as Thomas Metzinger's self-model theory, conceptualize the me as a product of hierarchical predictive models instantiated by the brain. So this framework explains how various levels of self-representation, from raw interoceptive sensations to complex social emotions, interact and shape experience. So these models clarify how disruptions can occur at different points in the hierarchy. For example, a loss of bodily ownership under anesthesia, or a disturbance in thought authorship in some disorders. So in practical terms, this scientific study of the phenomenal me provides a toolkit for interpreting diverse experiences of selfhood and addressing the roots of self-related suffering. And the research also has significant implications for understanding attachment, for empathy, and the social dimensions of identity. All right, so let's talk about the metaphysical I, the self as a subject. You're the subject today. So subjectivity's role in human life appears in strikingly concrete ways. Consider how during major decisions, like choosing a partner, making a medical choice, or facing danger, people often report a sense of deep authorship or agency, an unshakable inner core that remains steadfast, even when outward roles and narratives evolve. The persistent, unobservable sense of self acts like a compass, the I that chooses, values, judges, independent of shifting circumstances. So turning to the I, scholars make clear that the dimensions of the self invokes questions about subjectivity at the deepest level. The I is not an object with an experience. It is that which has experiences at all. This metaphysical self cannot be located, described, or objectified. Instead, it marks the point of view from which all conscious content appears. So this subjectivity is what makes experience first person, what Thomas Nagel called the irreducible what it's like quality that eludes explanation by reference to third person data alone. Philosophers have long debated the existence, the persistence, and the nature of this subject. They've had various models from Cartesian dualism, positing a soul distinct from the body and brain, to deflationary accounts such as Metzinger's, which argue that the self as subject is a conceptual illusion outside the realm of scientific investigation. Other thinkers like Galen Strawson and John Searle treat the subject as a necessary but thin structural feature, something that cannot be detached from its experiential content, yet is never itself an object among objects. So current scientific theories, including advanced models like the Integrated Information Theory, IIT, attempts to specify the physical correlates of conscious experience, and it offers insights into the conditions required for subjectivity to emerge. For instance, IIT predicts that multiple conscious agents, get this, could exist within one brain if information is organized into distinct integrated complexes. Like a scenario supported by research on split brain patients. Yet even neuroscientific models like this cannot fully bridge the gap between physical processes and the I of experience. So deep subjective awareness also plays a vital role in personal and cultural development. The capacity to experience yourself as a subject is foundational for agency, autonomy, and moral responsibility. It shapes how we take perspectives, make choices, and enter into relationships of empathy or accountability. I mean, not everybody. Most people have empathy. I'd like to think that. Empathy and accountability, although I've known a few that don't. In any case, in spiritual practice, contemplative inquiry often seeks to approach, question, or rest in this dimension of the self. So whether you pursue meditative stillness or analytic philosophy, the inquiry into the I, points to an aspect of human life that cannot be exhaustively explained by observable patterns or representations. It refers instead to the inescapable presence and immediacy of consciousness itself. Okay, so let's talk about the science and metaphysics in this research on the self. One of the recurring themes across the literature is that the study of the me demands a fundamentally different toolkit than the investigation of the I. The phenomenal self, I know I've mentioned this word a few times, phenomenal. It consists of experiences, representations, and behaviors, is amenable to empirical methods like observation, experimentation, neuroimaging, modeling, and measurement. So these approaches allow for increasingly precise mapping of how self-related content is constructed, maintained, and even disrupted within the brain and social environment. So contrast that with the metaphysical self, the I as the subject of experience. It requires primarily philosophical tools like conceptual analysis, logical argument, and phenomenological description. I want to describe the term phenomenological a little bit more for you. So it refers to a specific philosophical method and perspective, phenomenology. I think it's useful to learn. You'll leave this talk with a lot more than just a discussion of the self, but knowledge of phenomenology. In philosophy, phenomenology is the study and description of the structures of experience and consciousness as they're directly and subjectively lived from the first person point of view. So when I mention phenomenological description, it's a method that attempts to describe the structure of lived first person experience, how things actually appear and are experienced by you, by the subject. So while neuroscience can constrain and inform these metaphysical theories, it can't resolve the hard problem of consciousness or definitively establish the existence of character, of subjectivity itself. This division mirrors the earlier split between first person and third person, with the former deployed in phenomenology and the latter in natural science. Advances in predictive coding and similar theories, representational theories, influence new philosophical proposals about how and whether a subject arises from material processes. If you remember, I've already made 3 videos, all recent, involving predictive coding and the brain as a prediction machine. So I think one of them is 60 and then 64 or 65. After this, you might want to take a look. I think they're pretty good. So for those of you approaching questions of selfhood from practical, psychological, or spiritual perspectives, clarity about these methodological boundaries can prevent some conceptual confusion here. It enables you to select suitable techniques for inquiring and avoiding conflating these different types of claims. All right, so let's apply self-theory to your personal growth, your well-being. Otherwise, what importance is this talk for us today if we can't apply it? All right, so you know how the immense popularity of these mindfulness apps, self-improvement courses, personality testing. I have a video on that too. They don't work that well, by the way. It reflects there's this global hunger for effective tools to navigate the self. As of 2023, well over, I think, 250 million people worldwide practice meditation at least monthly. The data behind this estimate is a combination of government surveys and Google Trends data across multiple languages. So this figure often includes those who practice meditation, mindfulness, or related techniques. Also, the 2017 National Health Interview Survey conducted in the US covered over 26,000 people, concluded that over 14% of adults in the US practice meditation. So this is a sign that scientific ideas about the I and me have diffused well beyond academia into daily routine. I will explain more here. So consider how people respond to setbacks like rejection, failure, or burnout. Research from the University of Pennsylvania's Resilience Program demonstrates that those who learn to step back, viewing me experiences as passing phenomena rather than absolute identity, they experience less rumination, greater emotional regulation, and improved ability to bounce back. Remember, it's creating a little bit of distance from your life, from the me, from what's happening to you, from your problems or challenges and experiences, or your thoughts or intrusive thoughts, whatever it is, creating a little bit of distance and just observing it rather than always getting stuck in it and getting pulled into the experience or the life. So in therapy, cognitive and acceptance-based approaches invite clients to watch their thoughts and feelings with distance, much like a scientist observes data, allowing the I to freely notice the me rather than becoming entangled with it. This is so important for you to really understand that. So current research on the self underscores the profound impact that understanding this distinction between the me and the I can have on your daily life, your self-improvement, your mental health. So comprehending the structure of the self as a dynamic hierarchy provides a fresh perspective on personal development. And recognizing that the me, encompassing thoughts, emotions, your sensations, your social roles, it's shaped by patterns of prediction and self-modeling, and it suggests that personal narratives and even deeply held beliefs can change over time. It can change over time. That's the good thing. The me, not the I. So this insight forms the foundation for various therapy approaches, like including CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. I've spoken about that in one of my earlier videos. Mindfulness, acceptance, and commitment techniques, which empower individuals to step back from automatic self-identification with fleeting thoughts or distressing emotions. Unbelievable. I have a video about that too. It's about intrusive thoughts, and it couldn't be more than a week or two out. Whatever interests you, whatever you fancy, I probably have a video about it. All right, so by reframing sensations or ruminations as experiences passing through your consciousness, rather than as definitive aspects of your identity, you can gain a greater sense of freedom and flexibility. So this conscious detachment reduces anxiety, enhances your self-acceptance, and bolsters your resilience in the face of stress, loss, or social pressures. So, and the distinction between me and I also has crucial implications for the cultivation of agency and purpose. The sense of agency, which is experiencing yourself as the active initiator of thought or action rather than a passive recipient, it can be strengthened by practices that bring attention or intentionality to your personal, bring attention to intentionality and your personal values. For example, goal setting, deliberate habit formation, reflection, journaling, help reinforce the experience of being an active participant in your life. So these strategies draw on the understanding that the me is constructed by hierarchical predictions, while the capacity for awareness and evaluation, this is what we call the I, it resides in your ability to recognize and modify those predictions. All right, so let's see here. So by the way, and from a spiritual and existential perspective, confronting this metaphysical I, the ever-present subject of experience, it often becomes salient during periods of existential questioning or personal crisis. Mindfulness meditation, contemplation, these are long cultivated practices that quiet the habitual force on the me, creating space for deeper awareness that anchors in subjective experience. So on the whole, integrating these insights into your daily routines enables you to adaptively negotiate the complexity of your modern life by questioning self-attributions, updating beliefs in response to new information, and training attention to observe rather than react to your internal experiences. You can more empower yourself with these self-models. So I really strongly recommend you take a pause and reflect moment, either now or later. Take 15 seconds to consider how much of your current frustration or motivation centers on stories about the me, about your me. What might happen if you adopted the different stance, the observer stance of the I, simply noticing without reacting or identifying? So differentiating between the me and the I gives you real advantages in navigating both your consciousness and daily life. So understanding the me as a dynamic set of experiences shaped by prediction and layered models, it allows you to respond more thoughtfully to challenges in emotion, in behavior, identity. Okay, and so the latest research, it underscores the developing agility between I and me, okay? Practicing the ability to step between observation and participation, observing you in life and participating in your life. So whether navigating your major life changes, negotiating in a workplace, or striving for some clarity, the value, the practical value of these distinctions is measurable and it's actionable. Okay, so through this talk today, you and I have converged on this point. Self-knowledge is a skill. When you recognize the flexible structure of the me and appreciate the anchoring presence of the I, you acquire the resources for shaping the course of your lives with greater intention and empathy. YouTube thinks you should watch this video next from my channel as the best for viewer recommendation. Don't look at me. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel, Henry's Millions. Every time.